All right, buckle up, folks, because here we go with the text. The episode opens with a scene of teenagers skateboarding in the empty pool of what appears to be an abandoned home. A car pulls up, and we see that the property is surrounded by a chain-link fence with warning signs, a reminder that everything has changed. Walt gets out, now with a full head of hair and a shaggy beard, a stark contrast to his earlier, clean-shaven appearance. In the living room of the empty house, we see the word HEISENBERG spray-painted on the wall, a haunting reminder of the persona he has carefully constructed. He walks down the hallway, and we realize this is the White family home, now a shell of its former self. He goes into the bedroom and retrieves the ricin pill from behind the switch plate, his past crimes coming back to haunt him. He spots a terrified neighbor unloading groceries. He greets her with a chilling, "Hello, Carol," and she drops her groceries on the ground, her fear palpable, knowing that whatever has happened here is nothing good. In the present, a stunned Hank exits the bathroom, holding the Leaves of Grass book, the final piece of the puzzle now in his hands. He puts the book into a bag and looks out the window at Walt, his realization causing a visible internal shift. He walks outside, tells Marie he isn't feeling well, and says they need to leave. His mind now racing, and his need to protect himself and his family is now at the forefront. On the ride home, Hank can barely focus on the road as Marie excitedly talks about Europe, her own innocence now a sharp contrast to the horrible truth that has now been revealed to him. He suffers some kind of attack and veers off the road, onto a stranger's lawn, falls out the car, and Marie frantically tells the homeowner to call an ambulance, the beginning of an irreversible change, his life now in danger due to his recent discovery. Back from the ER, Hank assures Marie there is no need to see a doctor. Determined to handle this on his own, he makes her promise not to tell Skylar. Hank pulls out a folder and compares the handwriting from the Leaves of Grass book to a sample of Gail's handwriting, the analysis confirming his worst fears, the weight of this discovery now starting to crush him. At the car wash, Walt reminds Skylar their story must come first, his control of the narrative now overriding her feelings. He says they should buy another car wash, as it will take years to launder all their cash. Lydia arrives for a wash and goes inside, complaining that the quality of the meth she has received is only 68%. She wants him back for a few days to fix it. Walt dismisses her problems, his ego and power, putting him on the path towards a very dangerous new precipice. Skylar walks in and realizes Lydia was there. Walt says Lydia is a former business associate who is interested in him returning. Skylar follows Lydia outside, telling her to leave and never return. Her desire to protect herself and her family now taking control, she's no longer willing to sit in silence and let things happen around her. Following morning, Hank tells Marie he's not going to work. On her way out, she sees two men delivering boxes, their appearance setting off alarm bells. Hank tells them to put them in the garage. Once they leave, Hank starts going through files, including video footage, related to everything connected to the blue meth. Gus, HEISENBERG, etc., now completely obsessed with finding the truth. Another step down a path that will put him in direct confrontation with Walt. Skinny Pete and Badger are getting stoned at Jesse's place. Jesse, growing tired of their inane Star Trek conversation, leaves, unable to tolerate their lack of focus, his need for connection now pushing him down a lonely and isolating path with no end in sight. Jesse brings his giant bags of money to Saul's office. He grows tired of waiting and lights up a joint, a blatant act of defiance. He is immediately ushered to see Saul, a sign of the respect he has now earned. Jesse says each bag contains $2.5 million, and he wants one to go to Mike's granddaughter and the other to Drew Sharp's parents. His empathy and his need for redemption pushing him to do something right, even though he is surrounded by such a horrible world. Saul seems uncomfortable, but Jesse is adamant. He leaves, and Saul calls Walt. Walt tells him to hang on to the money, adding, "I'll handle it." Walt took the call while in the middle of a chemotherapy treatment, his health now another reminder of the fragile and dangerous nature of his existence. Walt shows up at Jesse's door with the money and demands an explanation. Jesse replies, "It's like you said, it's blood money," his guilt and regret starting to finally win over his need to survive. Walt tells Jesse to stop focusing on the past. He says he's out of the drug business, and there's nothing for them to do but live good lives. A teary-eyed Jesse says Mike's granddaughter needs someone to look after her. Jesse believes Mike is dead, and thinks Walt is responsible. Walt denies involvement, claiming Mike is fine, a pathetic and desperate lie, meant to control Jesse, but that now comes at the cost of all of his relationships. Walt excuses himself from dinner and rushes to the bathroom to vomit, his body betraying him, the physical consequences of his choices now taking their toll. He looks above the toilet and realizes the Leaves of Grass book is missing, his carefully constructed house of cards now on the verge of completely collapsing. Later that night, he's still searching for the book, now knowing that he is in very real danger. He gets into bed and asks Skylar what is wrong with Hank. She says Hank hasn't been to work all week, his disappearance further solidifying Walt's paranoia and fear of what might be about to happen. Later that night, Walt goes outside and checks the bottom of his car, finding the tracking device, now knowing that the people he once called allies are finally starting to close in on him, and the chase is about to begin. A homeless man knocks on Jesse's car window, waking him up. He asks if he can spare some change, and Jesse offers him a stack of cash, his reckless nature now at a full peak, and he does not seem to care anymore. The man, surprisingly, accepts, and Jesse drives off. We next see Jesse driving through an impoverished neighborhood, tossing money onto random lawns, another desperate attempt at redemption, a way for him to pay for the pain and suffering he has caused so many innocent people, or so he believes. The two cops who dropped off the files ask Hank if Gomez should be worried. Hank assures them he's fine. As they leave, Walt pulls into the driveway. Hank nervously puts away some photos, not wanting Walt to see what he is working on. Walt plays dumb, asking how Hank is feeling. He says if there's anything he can do to just let him know, all while maintaining the facade of normalcy. Walt stops, turns around, and shows Hank the tracking device. He says it looks like the one they used on Gus, and asks if Hank knows anything about it, his taunt now clear to his brother-in-law. Hank closes the garage door and punches Walt in the face, finally unleashing the anger he has been keeping inside. He pushes Walt against the door, yelling, "It was you!" and lists all the things Walt has done to cover his tracks.